Hi, this is Heather with the Old Schoolhouse, and this is part of the History of Homeschooling series. With me today is Jen of Homeschool New York, LEAH, and I'm so excited to have you with me today. Jen, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Jen, can you share with me a little bit about Homeschool New York, LEAH?
Sure. So we're an organization that was founded in 1983 by some families. At that time, homeschooling was illegal in New York. And there were some, lawsuits and local struggles going on with a family school district about whether or not their children were required to be in public school, or did the family have the right to educate their children at home. And so the result of that was that homeschooling became legal in New York in about 1988, because of a family that was going to be charged with truancy and the parents put in jail. And with the help of the attorneys of HSLDA, Mike Farris particularly, and a meeting with the New York State Education Department, um, the regulations that we have now in New York that we homeschool under were developed. And the families that were our founders started this organization to help future families and to give them support and advocacy, as well as we went through all of the years of, what did homeschooling look like and what did school districts require and what was that all about. So now we are the largest state organization of homeschoolers in New York, but we're not the majority of homeschoolers, but we are the only organization that has a statewide membership to the extent that we have. We have almost 90 groups across the state
Wow.
that meet and have various functions for their family members. So that's wonderful that we're still strong and growing across the state.
That is wonderful. And I appreciate that you mentioned how the beginnings of how,
Yeah,
homeschooling was there. It wasn't as easy as it was today. And
yeah,
we've
yeah,
come so far, and
yeah,
state organizations such as yours helped make it possible. A
definitely.
lot of us going into homeschooling, we don't know what the pioneers have done before. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, that history has easily been lost. And I'm quick to remind people when they say, oh, I didn't know or whatever, you have the luxury of not knowing because of what those families did and went through and the sacrifices they were willing to make. And so we do always try to refer back to the history and our founding. So yeah, in our lifetime, I mean, I was born well before 1983, homeschooling was illegal. And so
Wow.
that's hard to believe that was so recent in our history, and yet here we are, and nobody would have ever guessed it.
Wow. Well, you've come so far, and we
Yeah.
just appreciate everything the organization has done. And I would love to hear how Homeschool New York, LEAH, can help homeschoolers in your state today.
Yeah, so we're a very easy first contact for families who want to know more about homeschooling. We have resources available just even right on our website, homeschoolnewyork.org. We have a manual that's been developed over the time that we've been in existence that it goes through the history, has samples of what paperwork reporting might look like for your student, as well as suggestions on ways to comply with the regulations. Even though New York on paper looks like it has a lot of regulations to follow, and there are some very definitive steps and several times a year that you have to submit stuff to your school district, and required subjects that must be covered, you still do have a lot of flexibility in the topics and the content that you want to teach your students. So that's the thing I think we always just try to let parents know, that on paper it may look overwhelming, but when you get down to it, it really is easy to comply. I mean, we still, as an organization, would love for there to be less regulation. We don't like having that dubious distinction of being the most highly regulated state in the nation. And we're always looking for ways to, bring about change. But it shouldn't stop anybody from homeschooling in New York. It certainly is not a barrier to homeschooling in any way.
That's really good.
Oh, yeah. And so then our first option, the first priority that we try to do with families is to connect them with a local group. And so because we are a big state, we are divided into 8 regions, and each region has a couple that oversees it, and there are regional reps. And so we would like to put families in touch with those regional reps, and those regional reps are very connected to the local groups in their area. And after talking to a family and finding out, like, maybe, what age their child is, what they'd be looking for in a group, then they would likely be able to think of one or two or three local groups that would be a good fit for their family. And then they would put them into contact with the chapter leaders of those chapters and help them get connected. So that's our function. And then at the chapter level, that's really where the heart of homeschooling happens in our organization. We treasure our chapter leaders, and they really are the front-facing ministry part of our organization. They're the day-to-day holding hands and staying involved with those families and giving them the support that they need.
So there's help for everyone, anywhere, whether they're
Yeah.
brand new to the state, whether they're pulling their kid
Yep.
out for the first time, high school, middle school,
Yep.
whatever age or grade, there's help for them. How can they
Yeah.
find information? Where can they go
Absolutely.
today?
Yeah, so the website I think is very thorough in giving them even if they just want to know about homeschooling, there's stuff there. They wouldn't even have to contact anybody if they're the type of person that they don't necessarily want to make a phone call or send an email. There certainly is a lot that they could get just off the website. Of course, we would hope, we are a membership-driven organization, so our hope is that people would join and become members. And even if there isn't a local group in your direct area, we do have at-large memberships, and there are benefits to being a member. We have a quarterly print magazine that every member gets, full of articles and information and support. So sometimes that's enough for a family to just feel connected. We do partner with different curriculum companies and services for homeschoolers where we can get, discounts or classes available. So that's something that's available to every member. So we try to add things to our membership that we feel would benefit people and enhance their homeschooling. Organizations like yours that give us a discount membership to your, teachers, the schoolhouse teachers accounts and helping families that way. We have all of that. We also have a special needs coordinator, and I think we are really unique in the way we service special needs in our state. She served our organization for a long time just as a volunteer, and it got to a point where she could not maintain those volunteer hours and still be of help to her family. And so we took her on as an employee, so she can help families with struggling learners as well. New York is a little bit of a challenge for families with special needs students in that we don't have special accommodations written into our regulations. And so there are some, maybe not tricky ways, but some specific ways that families need to make their reports reflect the actual progress of their child so that they're not put on academic probation, because we would hate to see a child punished for, just having to be able to learn at their own pace and in a different way. And so our special needs coordinator is able to counsel those families and even sometimes help them find local providers for either evaluations or services that they might need. And she does have additional testing and evaluations that she can make available to our families as well. So,
Wow,
we like having that
that's
available to
wonderful.
our families.
That is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there anything else
Yeah. Yeah. I
before
mean, I
we?
have found no, I think with the special needs, just to kind of tag along on that, I think there are a lot of more people with special needs students who are pulling them out of school because their needs aren't being met for
Mhm.
whatever reason. Either, the public schools are just not able, or that environment is maybe not conducive to learning for some of those kids, and bringing them home and taking out all of those distractions and noise and constant activity, gives the child a better ability to focus at home. Maybe just even less instruction hours during the day, or being able to spread it out more is more beneficial to maybe a child with a reduced attention span. And so I just think that for all those reasons, special needs students seem to be a big part of the population of new homeschoolers. And so, just know that if you're in that position, yeah, a lot of services are provided in school. And I think there are families that feel like I would never be able to do this on my own. There certainly are a lot of special needs parents out there who are homeschooling their kids successfully. So I wouldn't let that be a barrier either, even in New York.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because some people, who
Yeah.
want to start homeschooling might think, oh, I need to go to the public school to get these services, but
Yeah.
every situation is different,
Right.
but it's wonderful that
Yeah.
you provide that.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate your time and I appreciate you sharing
Sure.
everything about your organization. And we will see you next time.
Great. Thank you.